Ahoy there, chummers, and welcome to another Shadowrun review. And today's review, we are going way back to the very first Shadowrun book that I ever purchased as a wee lad, and that is Shadowrun Second Edition core book. Now, we're doing this review a little bit differently today, using a digital copy of the book because I no longer have a physical copy of this book. This was, like I said, the very first Shadowrun book that I had purchased. And let's just say it was very well used, very well loved, and it actually got to the point where the book fell apart and I had to throw it out. I kind of wish I had gotten it rebound instead of throwing it out, but yeah, it is what it is. But this book right here, as far as Shadowrun history goes, I think this is probably one of the best core books that Shadowrun ever put out. Not necessarily for the rules and everything. Yeah, this had everything that you needed to run a game of Shadowrun, including critters and critter powers, something that Shadowrun Third Edition did not have. The Third Edition had the critter powers, but it didn't have actual stats for the critters. That was in a separate supplement that came with the Game Master, the GM screen. For Shadowrun Third Edition. And of course, this being Shadowrun Second Edition, the rules are very dense, very crunchy. Not a lot of it kind of tough to understand some of them and all of that good stuff. But the reason the Shadowrun book is probably one of the best core books in Shadowrun history is, number one, the artwork is awesome. I mean, just look at that picture on the front cover. That right there is probably the most classic Shadowrun piece of art that you will ever find. And it just perfectly encapsulates the 80s cyberpunk vibe of Shadowrun. And this, because this book was produced, I think, 1987, 89 is when this came out. This is a very 80s book. All of the artwork in the book is very 80s. You can see there's very 80s looking dragon right there. So yeah, it is a very 80s book, but the artwork is absolutely cool. But in addition to the artwork, this book actually had a fair amount of setting information as well. The first section, the years 2053, kind of introduces you to the world and talks about just in general what Shadowrun is and what is a role-playing game and that sort of thing. And then you get to, you got a short story like you have at the front of every core book right here. This one is, it's all right. Not that great, not that bad. It's a core book short story, so what can you say? But the history section actually goes into a lot of detail that's missing in later editions on some of the incidents that, well, I don't want to say the events in Shadowrun that actually helped shape the world. I mean, you have you have a like 4 paragraphs on the Lone Eagle incident. Something that you don't really see in later books. I don't think Third Edition had this much information on that. I don't think Fourth Edition even mentioned it, if I remember correctly. Fifth and Sixth Edition, I haven't read those books yet, so I don't know. But there was a lot of fluff in this book, a lot of crunch, and there's more 1980s artwork for goblinization and that sort of thing. Now, the one thing before I get to the one thing that I really wanted to talk about, that I really wanted to point out in this book, if you go to the end of the book, so about page 270, let me go ahead and just navigate there in my handy PDF. Yeah, not quite 270. Where is it? Well, the page numbering in this PDF is way off. Okay, here we go. So this section right here, the Modern Northwest, this actually goes into the default setting for Shadowrun, which is the city of Seattle. And it talks about the formation of the Seattle Metroplex, number one, and how the Treaty of Denver relates to that sort of thing. But it also talks about the lands around Seattle. You got Tarangir. I have no idea if I pronounced that correctly. You've got a little bit on the tribal lands that go over it, and it even goes into a little bit of information about some of the tribes that you'll find in the Seattle area. And not a whole lot of detail, but I mean, it tells you the predominant race of each tribe, whereabouts they're located, who the chief is, who their chief shaman is, their main industries, and a little bit about their basic philosophy. So that really helps you flesh out the setting. You know, having those tribes there really helps you bring a sense of a living world into your games, because let's say you've got a run where, you know, somebody needs to, I don't know, the Johnson is a member of the Cascade Orc tribe. Well, you know about what the Cascade Orcs in general, what their philosophy is, what their outlook is. You know what their commercial activities are, so you know maybe what runs they might be hired for, and that sort of thing. And it's a really cool addition to the game. And then of course it has a whole section on Seattle and just general information, points of interest, demographics, and that sort of thing. So that right there it's outdated by the current Shadowrun timeline, but not by much. It really isn't that outdated. I mean, the information about Tyr Tairngire in here, for example, it's basic information. It's basic history, so it's going to be relevant no matter what Shadowrun age you're role-playing in. Same thing with the Shadowrun, with the tribes in the Seattle area. If you are running in the Seattle area, it doesn't matter if you're doing 2053 or if you're doing 2070 or beyond. This information, this basic information, is basic enough that it is going to be relevant, but it's detailed enough that it gives you a little bit of crunch to work with. So that, I think, is one of the big selling points of this book, really, and one of the things that makes it one of the best core books out there. And it's not something that you really see a whole lot in modern Shadowrun, really. I mean, there's a ton of information in modern Shadowrun source books. There really is. But in the core books, you don't really find a whole lot of that setting specific information. That's in another book you've got to buy. Now, the last thing that I wanted to talk about in this book, and the thing that I really distinctly remember from this book, and something that I really thought was cool, was its section on metahumanity. So it starts out, gives some basic information about metahumanity. It gives a little bit of genetics information and that sort of thing. And then it goes into some commentary. And it goes into some commentary. I'm sorry, I know there was a long pause there, and you probably heard me whispering something. I was thinking this was the book that had like the testimonials from the different races. There was a core book. I remember there was a core book that had the metahumanity section was different stories from members of the different races, just kind of detailing what their daily life was like, what they had, the prejudices and challenges that they had to deal with, and so on and so forth. I think that's in the 3rd edition book, now that I remember. But even still, even without those testimonials, the metahumanity section, it's pretty good. It gives you, it reads like a clinical textbook, really. But it kind of gives you a good rundown of, it gives you a good rundown of the physical traits and characteristics, the general habitat for each metahuman, what they prefer and that sort of thing. So it still gives you a lot of pretty good information. I really think, now that I think about it, those testimonials are in the 3rd edition core book. Okay, well, even without those testimonials, this is still a pretty good book. Now, the rules in this book, I know everybody's thinking, well, should I get this book or not? The rules in this book are going to be very, very outdated. The rules in this book are like 30 years old. So if you want to play Shadowrun with 30-year-old rules, go for it. I'm not going to stop you. I did it myself. Little annoying at times, but you can do it. The main reason why I think you should pick this book up, though, is because of the fluff to it. You know, the history section and the section on Seattle, those alone make the book worth it, in my opinion, I think. Now, physical copies of this book is no longer in print. So physical copies of this book, if you can find it, they might end up being very expensive. Maybe you can find it at a bargain bookstore or like a thrift store or during a garage sale or something like that. If you see it for cheap, I say get it. You won't regret it. At the very least, you'll get a core book that has a lot of pretty cool information in it and that sort of thing. So, you know, if you can find a physical copy of the book for cheap, yeah, why not? Pick it up. Definitely. Digital copy. I've got a digital copy here. I don't remember where I got this digital copy. I did look on DriveThruRPG, which has most of the second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth edition Shadowrun books. But they don't have this. So you can't buy this at DriveThruRPG. So if you can find it online through various sources, you know, I won't say what those sources are, but yeah, it's definitely a good acquisition. And it's definitely something to put in your collection, especially if you can find a physical copy for cheap. Because if you can find a physical copy for cheap, that alone right there is going to be bragging rights for your gaming group. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and stop this video right here and let me know, did you use this book back in the day? Do you still use this book back in the day? Do you have this book? What did you think of this book when you picked it up, if you did, or if you read it, or what did you think of how, what did you think of how it worked when you were gaming with it, if you gamed with it? Let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you all next time. And that's the chip truth, chummers. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more Shadowrun content. Hit that notification bell so you will always know when I upload a brand new Shadowrun video, and until next time, remember to shoot straight and never, ever deal with a dragon.